Hi, my name is Jeff Rhodes, and this is another video on Office 365. You can see my new book here. You can see it. Go to Amazon or other retailers and pre-order it, or depending on when you watch this, it may already be available. So in today's video, we're going to talk about Microsoft Forms, and then we're going to use Microsoft Flow to copy our data to SharePoint, and then we're going to use that as the data source for Power BI. So that should be a lot of fun. So let's go to Microsoft Office, and I hadn't used on this the Forms recently, so I had to go to All Apps. So let's go to Forms, and we'll just say New Form. So like Forms, it's very easy to set up surveys and so forth, but what it can't do at the moment at least is become a data source for Power BI. Plus, there's some security issues that depend on what you want to do, so we'll talk about that. So let's just call it, I remember in our last video we had a help desk survey, and let's actually go get that, because we had a SharePoint survey, and we can just use the same questions and so forth. So we can go into samples here. So if you haven't seen the other video on how you do a Power BI on the SharePoint survey, we can do it as well. So let's go to survey settings. There we go. So we'll just use these exact same questions so we can compare them. So how satisfied are you with the courtesy of the technician? That'll be our first question. So the way we work it is you add new, and I'm just going to do ratings here because that's really all that we wanted to do on this. But you can do several types. You can change the number of levels. You can make them stars or numbers, and you can make them required. So in this case, there's no reason necessarily if they don't want to answer, I'm not going to make them. So you can do a couple other things as well here. Let's see what. Yeah, so you could put a subtitle in there if you wanted to. So. All right, so we'll just go copy each one of these. Keeps me from having to type it, and you watch me type. So we'll do another rating. All right, looking good. Quite sure why here we go. And we'll add new again, rating. Come over here. Oops, a little hard. There we go. And got one more, and then we got a comments. All right. Now this one we're going to do text. We'll put that on there, and we'll make it a long answer so they've got. You'll see this will actually give us a little bit of problems in our text, but we'll be able to deal with that. It's fine. So they and again, we don't make it required. So all right, and it saves it automatically. So if you've got the rights on the form, you can get the responses here, and we'll answer one in a minute, and we can see it. It'll show you the results. But one thing that you can do is if you let people see the results, get to this form, then they also can delete responses once we get in there. And so if you were doing this where you were evaluating people, then it's possible that somebody would come in and delete bad survey responses if they also have the rights to look at the results. So that's one other reason that's nice to go to SharePoint with it. But let's show how you share it. So you can come in here and you can say, okay, only people in my organization can respond, or anyone with the link can respond. And the advantage of, like, if they say people in the organization, then you'll know who it was that did it. But if you say anybody with the link, then it's anonymous, and you could give them the choice of putting who they are, which I didn't do in this case. I was leaving it anonymous, and then we can copy that responds. This is what you'd email out. So what we'll do in our help desk is say right in the signature block of the email, click here to say how I'm doing. And every ticket, which I'll do some videos later on our help system, which we wrote in Office 365, it sends out a link, and it has the link to this form so that they can fill it out with every time a ticket's resolved. So that's how it goes. All right, so let's keep going. What we want to do next is we want to go into SharePoint. So I'll go ahead and I'll go in that same site where we were, and we'll go to Site Contents. And what we want to do is we want to add a list that allows us to hold this data. And in essence, what we want to do is just put in a spot to hold the the responses. And since we're going to have to rename them when we get to SharePoint, or when we get to Power BI anyway, we don't need these to be as long. So we can just do something like, so let's go back to our form here. If we go back to our question, so we'll just say courtesy, technical skills will be our first two. So we'll say courtesy response. And these will all be straight text, but that's okay. That's what we want. We're not going to use the title here, so we'll just kind of leave that alone. Oh, actually, yeah. Sorry, that didn't make any sense. Let me delete this. I'm getting ahead of myself. I still needed the name of the list instead of the next first column we wanted. So let's just get rid of that one completely. Yeah, and now we can go back to Site Contents. We're actually there, but we didn't have our new button, so let's try it again. Sorry, this is the name of the list, so we'll just call survey responses like that. And I might even take it out of the site navigation because we don't really want to see it if anybody is looking around, because we don't want them to add it here. And then we can do our columns. So we could rename the title, but what will happen in Power BI is it will still say title. So yeah, we go either way. But let's just add columns that way. So it'll be single line of text, and then it'll say courtesy. And we're going to rename it anyway. So we'll say courtesy response like that. And then technical skill, that. Let's go back to our form. Then we had timeliness, overall service. Service, and comments. So we'll say multiple lines of text here. There we go. So what we're going to want to do is have that get loaded, but we're going to do it from flow. And even though we can put flow from here, I like to just start flow ourselves directly. So we go over and use flow. And the key here is to use a template. So all I like to do is just type in SharePoint. And what we're looking is, record form responses in SharePoint. So we got it all built for us. And we'll continue, and it kind of knows who we are, so it flows very cool. It takes a little bit getting used to, but not too bad. So it's going to find our list of forms. So it has the survey, and it already put this apply to each. And so that's nice. So it's going to basically run every time somebody answers a form, and we put the unique identifier again, and then we just need to get the URL of our SharePoint site where we put this in. So that's why we built that first, because we need that to be there. Oh, and it might even remember it, but let's just paste it in. Here we go. Oh, there it is. It's got it from the list. There we go. And then we'll come in and we've got our survey responses here. And then what's nice is it then allows us to put in, now since title was already required, I'm going to go ahead and just put one of the things that I didn't build a spot for because it's anonymous. It'll be blank anyway. Oh, which actually I probably don't want to put that. So let's just put the submission time in there. The responder's email we won't actually get, but if we had put that they had to be within the organization, we'd get that, and we'd want to put a spot. But we'll say, okay, well, where's the courtesy, and see how I'm matching them up over here. What's the technical skill? Notice these are alphabetical, not in the order of the form, so just have to keep an eye out. There's the timeliness. There's the overall service. And then scroll down a little bit so I can see it. And comments. All right, so that's it. And then we'll save it. And we can give it a name here, and we'll just say update survey results. That. Save again, and then usually I get it prompts me anyway just to see if it didn't, so they fixed something. That's good. All right. So now what we can do is go in and test it. So we'll share this, and again, anyone with the link can respond. So we can come in here and just paste that link in. And really for testing, what I want is I want all my data. So I may not do it all now, but I want to show what happens in SharePoint. So this is some data, blank line here, or maybe I'll say extra line. We'll submit. There we go. And we'll do, if you really want to test it, you actually want to put everyone in there, because you'll see in Power BI some data. And then we want to basically test with it being blank as well, because that's another thing that can get you. So let's do all threes here and leave that one blank. And then let's do another one where they just didn't answer any of them, except no answers, because we didn't make that required. So we got to submit. So all right, let's go look at our list and see if our flow is even working. You can tell it is, which is good. So we got the timestamp, and see how it put our numbers in there fine. And then we got comments, and looks like so far so good here. Now when we get to Power BI, we'll have a couple other issues, but so far so good. Why don't we just go ahead while we're there? Let's just put the 2 and the 1 in, just to make sure we have all our test data in there. So oh, that's not the one we want. We want to go here. And I'll leave that blank again. We'll do one more with our ones. And then what's nice, if you have the rights in the to get to the SharePoint, you just delete these ones before you go live with it. Extra comment and data. There we go. Submit. So our flow is working well. It's loading those. And there you saw the 1 just pop up. All right. All right, let's shift over to Power BI Desktop. This is a free tool that you can download, and what you want to do with that is connect it to your data source. We put that a little bit better size in for our window here. There we go. Better. All right. And we go to Get Data. And we come say More, and we'll say SharePoint. So if you saw my earlier video, we use SharePoint lists there as well when we had actually a SharePoint survey. But in this case, we're going straight to a list. And we'll see if I still have that in the clipboard. Nope, that was the wrong one. So let's go back, grab our URL. So we don't want to go all the way to the list. We just want to go to the site. Paste that in. Then it'll give us a list of our lists and our libraries and so forth, and we can pick which one we want. Got a couple called help tickets from other ones, but we've got survey responses right there. And we load. The nice thing is if we have this report as we get new survey response, then we refresh the data, and you can set Power BI to load it every every morning or whatever. So we can look at the data here a little bit, but we're going to want to be doing some changes in the data anyway. So we will come up here and say Edit Queries. It's going to my other monitor, so let's bring it over here. There we go. All right, and what we can do with it is everything that we end up editing in here will get added to the site. Added to our steps so that we can change them if we wanted. So notice this title is still there, and even if I had renamed it in SharePoint, it would still say title. So we can just rename, and we'll just call it timestamp. We don't really going to use that one because SharePoint itself gives us the timestamp as well, so we might as well use that also. And this could be, if we wanted to exactly match what we had in the other, on our other report, we could go in and paste in the name, the whole text of the thing, but to make it shorter, I'll probably just do it a little bit. So I'll just say courtesy rating, like that, instead of pasting in the whole thing. And I'll say technical skill rating. And this one already says timeliness. I'll just say rating. And by the way, you can tell it thinks it's already interpreted these are numbers. See where it says 1, 2, 3? You can see it here as well if we say change type. Even though it actually doesn't have it checked there, but we could still say it's a number. You could also do stuff like change the what to do with nulls and put in a 0 or something like that. But I don't think we need to do that right now. And then this one's kind of off the screen a little bit, but we'll say overall rating. That. All right, and then our data, it's interesting, when we did this at the Air Force Academy, we got somewhat funky data here. We've basically got HTML looking data that we had to do some transforms. What you have to do is parse it as JSON and stuff, but it's not actually showing. So we'll come back to that and see if we actually need it or not. One thing we will need is we want to make sure that this is showing as a date. So I'm going to give this actually as a date time, and we just change the type just so it knows that it's a date. And then we get some other stuff. One thing, we don't Really need that. Okay, so let's go ahead and really we'll just add our extra column. So one thing we want to know on this data is how recent is the tickets and the survey. So this will be data could go on for years, and so we want to be able to track what was most recent and have sliders and filters and so forth, so we can see what's happening this week or this month and not get it all mixed up with all the other survey data. So to do that, we add column and we say custom column, and I usually call it days past, like that. And we use the desktop formulas, this M syntax. So we say date time dot from date time dot local now. And it's kind of bitten me before. Make sure you put the two parentheses in and then close that parentheses. So that'll be the current time and date minus, and then we just use our created column. We could have actually used that timestamp, which we get as well, but since SharePoint always gives us a created, this is kind of more general. And it gives us, oh, and then notice, I had to do this in my other video as well. Since this is done at a different server than where I am, it's actually given us a negative number. Let me see if I can remember the, whoops, I didn't want to do that pivot. Notice how I can just delete it. See if I can remember, I'll say plus pound duration. Doing this from memory, 0, 6, 0. So that's adding 6 hours. We'll see if that's right. Nope. All right, I'll pause the video real quick and go look at my right formula because I didn't remember it correctly. All right, I'm back. Looks like I was close. I just had one more parameter. So let's try that one. Ah, there we go. So I did those 12 minutes ago, which is exactly right. So I've just offset it so that we're getting real dates. Really doesn't matter. This is all today since I just built this. But what we can do is change type so we get to a whole number. So that'll just round it to 0. So really we didn't need to change that offset, but that can cause some weird things when it looks like it happened yesterday, and particularly if your offset's more than 6 hours. So that's kind of nice. I think that's all we need to do at the moment. If not, we can always come back in here and fix it later. So we apply our changes. Go back in here. I'll go ahead and save this file so we can just call it help desk survey flow. Okay, I'll give us one. Okay, so this next part's kind of similar to what we did in our other video. If you watch that on the SharePoint survey results, but we can build some pie charts, and we'll just build one for each type of question, each question that we have. So what we want to do for the value is I like to use the ID column, and so we'll call that and say, I like to rename it and just say number of responses, and then our legend will be our different ratings. Okay, so let's see, we had a courtesy rating like that. We can kind of blow that up a little bit so you can see it a little bit better. So it gives us our rating there, which is good. Now one of the things that we'll end up copying and pasting this, but what ends up happening, and that's why I wanted to do each of the colors, is that Power BI just gives us the colors just kind of randomly. It doesn't really know that 5 is good and 1 is bad. And so we can come over here and go to our data colors and just give it a thing. So remembering kind of what we did in our other video, we had blank was kind of a gray, 1 is really bad, like very dissatisfied. 2 is kind of somewhat bad. 3 actually from this case just came about right. 4 is we did it kind of green, and 5 we did it kind of a dark blue green. These aren't the greatest ones. I would normally go to Photoshop and get the exact colors that I want, and you can paste them in there as hex, but for a quick video this will do it. So we'll paste this, and we have 4 questions total, so we'll just see if there we go. So we can make those a little bigger, but you get the idea. The nice thing is then we can just take our other ones here. So we'll put this as technical skill instead. And we'll make this one timeliness. And where's our other one? Oh, overall. Oops. Click on that one. Maybe we'll make that one a little bit bigger, since that's kind of our most important one. Then what we like to do, we can do a slicer. That's this guy. And what that does is we can put our either our number of days or our created on there. So we'll just put our created. That, and it gives us a nice little bit of our dates. And then we can put a card in here. The multi-row card. Want this? Oops, I shouldn't have been clicked on that, but that's all right. We'll have to go back, and this one we'll put again our number of tickets. Oops, geez, not doing very well. Let's try it again. So let's go back to our slicer first. Guess you get to see it twice. That's the good. There we go. And then I got to click off there and then do the card, and then put the ID in there, and we'll say count, and we'll rename that, and we'll say number of responses. What's nice about that is in whatever, like when we click away here, or we'll see when we click on something else, each one of these say 1, but then when we when we limit it out there, then it'll show like all the responses to start. So anyway, we can clean that up a little bit, but let's do the last thing. We like to put a table in there, and I'll usually just put all the data. And what's nice about that is then they can export that to Excel if they want to as a CSV and get their information. So we kind of, I should do it in the same one. So that looks like we did courtesy. Actually, let's put the date in. Oops, that wasn't the one I wanted. Create a date. And it wants to do is this hierarchy, which I don't like. And it puts the date in there if we wanted to know it or not. But we can, what I'll typically do, let's just fix that real quick. I'll normally go over here and we go under modeling, and we go to that column, which is the created, and we can just change that. Oh, actually there's a date time, but we can change the display to just have the year like that, the date and time of the year, and then it changes it over there. So that's kind of nice. And then we'll do our courtesy rating, and the next one was technical skill. Our timeliness, and our overall. Oh, that's the one we want. And then this is where we get to see our comment as well. So we'll put our comment in there. Like that. Oh, and it somehow didn't put it back to where I wanted it there. So let's put that up like that, make it nice and big. so we can see everything. Oh, looks like I got comments in there twice. Make comments nice and big. We can bring that over like that. All right, and we're gonna, and I'll say last week. Now we don't have much data since we just created it. Notice how the response is, now that I kind of took the focus off, that it shows all of them, and it did a good job. So we'll do another video, what would you do when you get kind of weird HTML formatted data. But this one came across nicely, which is great. It's got our different ratings if they wanted to look at it. Like I said, you can export the data, but then watch as you can drill down and say, oh, okay, who is it that answered it to? And we can see what they said and what comments, and they may have put their name and number in there. But how do I do the week? So I open up this filters thing, and we got two types of filters: filters on the page and the filters in the entire report. So this is where I use that days past. So I'll say, okay, days past is less than or equal to 7. So every time they run the report, only things that are showing up in the last week will be here. But then I can duplicate that page and say last month. And oh, it didn't actually change that. Sorry. I must not have pressed returns. That's why it didn't work. So I say 7 and press return on it. And we'll go back here as less than or equal to 30. Let's make sure that still took. Yeah, there you go. And you got the idea. Just to do one more, we'll say the last year. We'll say 365. So we could do quarters and all kinds of stuff. And let's go. And now when we publish to Office 365, whatever tab you're on, that's the one that it'll actually do as its default. So I always like to go to the first tab so it's not a little weird. And we'll save it. Oops. Go to the Home tab, Publish. And it just selects, it'll give you a list of all your workspaces, but it'll go right out to my workspace that I'm doing for all this. And if you don't have the version of Office 365 that gives you Power BI, you can still look at this in the free Power BI desktop. Not quite as nice, but still not bad. Let's bring this over. There we go. Pull it in like that. You can see it gives us our data. They're all the same because we did it in the last week, month, and year, but we can go in, see our overall results, and so forth. Oh, now one thing I've forgotten that. So when I copied and pasted those, notice that it didn't actually keep my data colors. So really to fix this, I'd have to go back to each of these and reset those data colors. But I won't take your time up in the video to do that. One thing I really like, you can export that to PowerPoint, also PDF. You can make it full screen just so you can see it. Any of these guys, you can also make that full screen. Look at it. I didn't put any rollovers, but if I had anything to put in there, I could have done that as well. So, all right, well, I hope this was a useful video. Again, what we covered was forms, and then SharePoint to make a list, Flow to copy the info to the SharePoint list, and then Power BI to visualize it. Have a great day.